Louie T. Welcome to the 2020 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series where your man Louie T aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2020 NFL Draft using our brand new grading scale from 5 to 1 is how these scores will range for each and every single pick in said team's draft. We'll add up all of those picks, divide by the number of selections made by that team, which will yield us an overall grade for that team's draft. We'll then move on to the next team in this series picked by you. That's right, you, the viewer out there, are in total control as this is the You Pick format. Simply be the first to leave a comment in the comment section of this and future videos stating two things: the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. Some examples would be Giants, next, G-Men, next, New York Giants, next, NYG. You get where I'm going with this. As a matter of fact, the next team up in the series is none other than Big Blue themselves, the New York Football Giants, or as I like to call them, the G-Men. And nothing like the G-Men being held back by the G-Man in Dave Gettleman. Now, I've always told anyone that would listen, I can't stand Dave Gettleman as a general manager. He's a poor builder and constructor of a roster. He doesn't handle the draft very well. And I thought last year was an example of that. I think this year is a little bit of an example of that. Now, mind you, you got some really good football players in this particular draft. You saw him botch the whole trade last year for Leonard Williams, then doubled down on the fact that he traded for him and brought him back on a franchise tag. Nobody's fighting you for Leonard Williams, trust me, okay? But that's nor here nor there. That's a separate issue for a separate day. Here, you got some quality football players in this draft. And when you hit in this draft, you hit big. The problem is when you miss, you missed really bad in this draft. And look, I can't tell you if these guys are going to pan out or not. And who am I to say that this guy isn't going to turn out or that guy isn't going to turn out to be an NFL stud or at least a guy that contributes, which once you get to the back end of the draft, that's all you're looking for, guys that can help, that can contribute in some shape, way, or form on your roster. And I could be wrong about some of those guys, but it was the lack of one particular position in this draft that was one of the deepest in this draft class that you didn't take. That was probably the thing that really pissed me off the most about this Giants draft. However, they did do some good things. So without any further ado, let's get to the Giants 2020 NFL draft and what they were able to accomplish. So you take a look, all 10 selections made by the Giants right here in front of you. We're going to break them down, and I'm going to use my write-ups that I've done for each of these players to break them down. I'll be reading from them. So we get this draft underway. First round, 4th overall selection. Offensive lineman out of Georgia, Andrew Thomas is the selection. And look, this is a no-brainer for me in terms of the position that was taken. You know, once there was no opportunity to go after Chase Young or Jeff Okudah at this point, and you couldn't get out of the pick, the Giants desperately needed to protect their investment last year in the first round. Similar spot, as a matter of fact, when they took Daniel Jones a season ago. So they needed to invest in a tackle to protect him. No, you got Nate Solder. He's not good enough. And so Andrew Thomas is the guy that you decided to select out of Georgia. Now, that was a bit of a surprise because, you know, most people looked at the pecking order of tackles and said, look, there are 4 guys, and you could put them in whatever order you like, but at the end of the day, just get one of these 4 if you're looking for something elite. All right. Now, the guy with the least amount of upside, but the safest of that group was Andrew Thomas. So a lot of people just automatically assumed he'd be the last of the 4 to go. But he was the first, which was a little bit of a shock to everyone. Look, I'm not going to beat the Giants up for taking the safe guy. He's still really, really good. So I don't really have a problem with it. There were other guys that would have offered you better upside, more upside, sure. All right, but the floor was also lower on those guys than Andrew Thomas. At the end of the day, you got yourself a quality patch. You got a quality left tackle that will probably be the linchpin of your offensive line for many years to come. And that's pretty much what you were setting out to do in this case anyway. 6'5", 315 pounds, 36 arms, 5'2", 240 for Andrew Thomas out of Georgia. 13 games, 13 starts at left tackle, 41 games in total, 41 starts for Andrew Thomas, 26 at left tackle, 15 at right tackle. So that tells you right now, if you don't want to move Nate Solder. And generally, old dogs can't learn new tricks at this point of their career. Nate Solder's been a left tackle for the last umpteen years. If you're looking to keep him in your lineup because you're paying him a ton of money, then Andrew Thomas probably is going to be very comfortable moving back to right tackle for the meantime. And then next year, or whenever the case may be, whenever you decide the time is right, you can kick him back over to left tackle. Maybe you just say, hey, Nate, your time's up. You got to either go to right tackle or we're going to cut you. I don't think Nate would have a problem with that because you're still going to have to pay him his money. So, at the end of the day, I think you're probably going to end up putting Andrew Thomas at right tackle for the time being. He may be at left tackle. Who knows? We'll see. At the end of the day, had a first round grade on him. I thought he was had him as my number 3 tackle in this draft. I liked him a little bit better than Tristan Wirfs. But of the other two, Mekhi Becton and Dredrick Wills, I thought those guys were superior to that of Andrew Thomas. Nonetheless, size, length are the two biggest traits right off the bat that you see with him. 6'5", 36-inch arms. He's a monster, is Andrew Thomas. Physicality, he's a guy that plays the game in a physical nature, which is what you want. You want nasty guys up front. I told you there's nothing wrong with being a nice guy if you still get your job done. You drafted a nice guy in this draft, and we'll talk about it when we get there, and he doesn't do his job all that well. And so I have a problem with you being a nice guy at that point. Andrew Thomas is not a nice guy, which is what you want, at least on the football field. We're not talking about off the field. We're talking about on the field. He's physical. Athleticism and movement skills. These are all things that made this guy a top 5 potential pick before the college football season started. Everyone was talking about Andrew Thomas when you talked about left tackles. And then some way, somehow, as the season progressed, he didn't do anything wrong, yet other names creeped in front of him, and he kind of got pushed back. And so that's why I didn't have a problem with him going here, because Andrew Thomas didn't do anything wrong. He's still athletically gifted. He's still 6'5". He's still got long arms at 36 inches. He still has great movement skills, can climb to the second level and devour guys there. He didn't do anything wrong. So he deserved to be here if the Giants chose to make him that guy. If they saw fit to make him the number 4 overall pick. Got solid recovery, and he needs it because there are times when he does get beat. So that recovery does come in handy. And that's where those 36-inch arms really do him some justice. Got really good feet. And to be an elite tackle, you have to have great feet. You have to have feet and hands that kind of marry and match up with one another. He has that, speaking of hands, powerful hands. The kind that jolt you when they lay hands on you. When they hit you in your chest, some air leaves your body. He's got those types of hands, does Andrew Thomas. Plays with urgency, which is what you want your offensive lineman to do. You want him to be patient in the pass game, all right, but you want him to be urgent in the run game. You want him to feel like, I need to go get this guy in the run game. All right, in the pass game, you're absorbing. You don't want to use too much energy. If a guy's doing all of this dancing, just stand in front of him, mirror him. Don't do much. Don't go lunging. Don't take yourself and throw yourself off balance. But when you're in the run game, I want you to play with urgency. He does. Experience. The guy played 41 games in the SEC. Need I say more? Availability. He was available for 3 straight years in the SEC. And oh, by the way, he played in the SEC. I can't stress that enough. Maybe the only place that you could have played, the only conference you could have played in that would have given you even better experience this past year would have been the Big Ten, because of all the elite edge rushers that came out of there. Chase Young. Hell, if you've been a starter for multiple years and you played in the Big Ten, you probably saw Nick Bosa, Chase Young, AJ Epineza, Yetur Gross-Matos. Need I go on? I mean, there's so many elite edge rushers that have come out of there these past couple of years, and this year in general, that that's probably the only place you could have gotten more experience, better experience than in the SEC. Weaknesses. Kick slide isn't always the smoothest. For as good an athlete as he is, and as light on his feet as he can be, and as good as I've talked about his feet being, His kick slide isn't always the smoothest. It can be a little bit jumbled and a little bit clunky, and sometimes that can get him into trouble against guys that can turn the corner quickly, like you saw in the SEC championship game versus K'Lavon Chaisson, where he was able to turn the corner a couple of times on Andrew Thomas. And that was simply because that kick slide wasn't very smooth. K'Lavon Chaisson, who is an elite edge rusher, got the jump on him, and he wasn't able to recover in those particular situations. Canarave arrived late to backside cutoffs. Again, he's a solid athlete, but when you're 315 pounds, you can only move but so fast for most guys. You know, there are certain guys that are just different, like a Trent Williams that come along every so often, but Andrew Thomas is not Trent Williams, obviously, and so sometimes he can't get to that backside cutoff. You know, sometimes that guy is able to beat him to the spot and run the line and maybe make a play backside. So that's something else you'll have to deal with. Does take a few unnecessary trips to the ground. I know that was a big complaint of a lot of people. I have the same one. You know, this is a guy that for some reason, and a lot of it is probably just balance situations where he gets off balance, and you see that from time to time with him on tape, whether it's his base or he gets a little over anxious and starts reaching, whatever the case may be, he's on the ground during a rep that he doesn't need to be on the ground for. If you're not cutting a guy, if you're not pancaking a guy, putting a little extra syrup on top, there's no reason for you to be on the ground. If you are able to keep your feet, you need to stay on your feet because you can't help me from the ground. All right. And there are a few unnecessary trips to the ground throughout the tape with Andrew Thomas. And finally, he struggles with redirect in space. One of those guys that once he gets that 315-pound frame going in one direction, good luck trying to stop it and turn it a different direction. So normally, if he's going to lock in on a second level target, he needs to do a really good job of locking in on that second level target and not allow him to dart out of the way at the last second, because if he does, he's not going to be able to stop, turn, and get to that guy. That's a lost cause. So look, a lot of people made a lot of ballyhoo about this pick. Not I. You got one of the top 4 tackles. That was the most important thing. Would I have taken Andrew Thomas at 4? No, I wouldn't. But that doesn't make this pick any less special for the Giants. This is a position of need, a major position of need. And this is a guy that can fill it very admirably for the next decade plus potentially. And when we look back on this draft, he may be the one that turns out to be the best of the 4 guys. We'll see. At the end of the day, I feel like you got a really good football player here in the first round, 4th overall selection, offensive tackle out of Georgia, Andrew Thomas. And you've already seen it. It's a 5. I think this is a really good pick. You got a really good football player at a position of need. And the value was good. There's really nothing wrong with this selection. I know a lot of people made a big stink about this, not me. But for me, this was where I thought you got the best value in the entire draft. Here as we go to the second round, 36th pick overall. Safety out of Alabama, Xavier Mckinney is the selection. 6 feet, 201 pounds, 4'6", 340, 5.5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 5 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, 1 block kick, 1 pick six in 13 games. Did you just hear that mouthful that I gave you? This is the way this guy is impacting the game in a multitude of ways. For his career, 13 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, 6 forced fumbles, 15 pass breakups, 5 interceptions, 1 block kick, 2 pick sixes in 41 games. I had a first round grade on Xavier McKinney. No safeties went in the first round, which was a surprise to me because I thought if anybody was going to go, it'd be Xavier McKinney. He didn't go. He was my number 1 safety on the board. Was shocked that he didn't get selected in the first round. And so for him to be sitting here for you at the early stages of the second round, I felt like it was a win. I thought anybody that got Xavier McKinney, whoever drafted him, was getting a big-time player at a position that can be a game-changing position if used correctly. And we're getting an absolute steal. And honestly, I only believe he was here because of the 40 time. And I think he would have cleaned that up at his pro day. I think he's faster than that. When you watch him on tape, you see a guy that's much faster than 4.63. So I'm telling you, that's probably why he's here in the second round. Had that second number started with a 5 or a 4. If it's a 4, he's definitely in the first round. If it's a 5, I think he's still in the first round. But because there was no chance for him to clean that up, he would have run a 4.51 or 4.47 at his pro day. I firmly believe that. But he ran a poor time at the combine. And I think people dinged him for that, and he never got a chance to clean it up. Strengths, good safety size. His physicality kind of matches that. And honestly, at 201 pounds, for the way that he plays, you'd like him to actually be a little bit bigger than that. It'd be great if he could get to 210, 215. But at the end of the day, he plays a brand of football. His body hasn't failed him yet. But I'd like to see him put on some more weight and not lose any of his athleticism. And I think he will be able to do that. We'll see if he's able to do that or not. Versatility, to me, is the reason why he should have been a first-round pick in today's NFL when you're looking for diverse defenders, guys that can do multiple things, where you can line them up all over the place and take advantage of their skill sets in multiple formations and looks. This is a guy that fits that to a T. And so it behooves me, it baffles me that no one saw fit to snatch this guy up. And I get it, there was a ton of talent in the first round and you could bypass, but there were some questionable first round selections by some teams where I'm thinking, you couldn't have used an Xavier Mckinney? Really? Anyway, this guy's a Swiss Army knife. He can play over the slot with ease. He can play single high safety, which is why I think that 4.63 is criminal. He's a box guy that you feel really good about. He's aggressive in the box, looking to come down and be a physical striker. He's a blitzer, a guy that blitzes very effectively. And to me, he plays the underneath zone with the kind of poise and football IQ that separates him from a lot of safeties that I've seen come out of the draft in the last 3 or 4 years, really. I mean, when I give you my comp, you're going to think to yourself, Louie T, are you tripping a little bit? Maybe you'll think that, maybe you won't. But I'll give you that a little bit later on. But the fact that this guy can do so many things and do them so well, I just was shocked no one saw fit to make the move on him in the first round. And I'll take it a step further. When you look at Xavier Mckinney and what he brings to the table, I thought he was the best player on the field in the LSU Alabama game from the Alabama side of things. You know, on the LSU side, Joe Burrow was amazing. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was amazing. Those guys stood out in that game. And Alabama had some players play big in that game as well. But to me, no one, and I mean no one on the Alabama defensive side of football played that game better than Xavier Mckinney. Honestly, their defense looked shell-shocked and scared in that game. The only guy that looked like he was ready to come and play was Xavier Mckinney. High football character and IQ. He just gets it, man. On the field, off the field. I think this is a guy on the field that he sees things before they happen. He's able to react to them, make plays. I just think these are the kind of guys that can change ball games. A ridiculous closing burst. It's one thing to see something. It's another thing to be able to get there and do something about it. He's the kind of guy that sees it, and then because he's so athletically gifted, he can close on it and make something happen. And again, it's one thing to see it. There are a bunch of guys in the league that see it. They just can't get there in time. That's the difference between Luke Kuechly and your middle linebacker, okay? That's the difference between Patrick Willis and everybody else's middle linebacker, is that those guys see it and they can get there. Other guys see it and they can't. He can get there. Field generalship and fluidity. Man, is he fluid. He moves around the field effortlessly, which is, again, a reason why I think he can do just about anything, which is, again, why I feel like I felt like it was criminal that this guy wasn't taken in the first round. Reliable enforcer and tackler. He can do a little bit of both. He can come down and be a striker and light you up, or he can just wrap and spin and shoot your cuffs and get you down on the ground. At the end of the day, I could care less how it's done. You know, it's nice to separate man from ball. It's nice to hit a guy and let him know I'm going to be here all day. And are you sure you really want to do this all day? But there's also something to be said about just getting a guy down sometimes, and he can do both. Ball skills and pursuit angles, top notch. I shouldn't say top notch. There were some dropped interceptions. We'll talk about that on tape. But he's got ball skills. He makes plays on the football, and he takes great angles to the ball, takes great angles in pursuit of a ball carrier. So, again, as a safety, you have to take proper angles. He does. And he's a playmaker, man. I talked about all of the things he brings to the table. This is a guy that had 3 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, which was among the leaders in the nation, 5 pass breakups, 3 INTs. He blocked a kick, and one of those interceptions went to the crib. That's a playmaker, folks. That's a guy that's all over the field, impacting the game in a multitude of ways, whether he's getting the team off the field on a 3rd down with a pass breakup or a sack, or he's getting an interception and setting up a short field for the offense, or scoring himself, Or even on special teams, blocking a kick that could change the complexity of a game. This guy is a playmaker. These are the kind of guys you want on your football team. You go to his weaknesses. He's nosy, man. He's really nosy, and that's a good thing and it's a bad thing. It's a gift and a curse. His eyes can get him into trouble when looking to make a big play. There were a couple of times on tape where you watch him, and he's so nosy that he's allowing guys to get on top of him and plays to be made. And that's not him, being beat because the guy was just better. That's him being nosy and allowing guys to get behind him when he knows he shouldn't. And that's sometimes what happens to playmakers, is that they try to be nosy or they try to bait a quarterback. Hey, he's open, throw it to him. And then they try to make a play. And sometimes you're not able to get there in enough time. So he's a very nosy defender, which I like. But at the same time, it can get you into trouble if it is not used properly. Missed opportunities on tape. And these can be cleaned up. He dropped some interceptions. I saw 2 dropped interceptions on tape where I'm like, dude, you got to catch that. That's the kind of play that the real game changers, the difference makers in this league, they make those. All right. That's a turnover. Got to have it. Missed tackles. You get those from time to time. Not many. All right. This is a guy that I feel comfortable saying, if you want me to pick out a guy last line of defense, or you want me to pick out a guy down inside the box, and this thing could go for 67 if this guy doesn't make the tackle, I'm taking Xavier Mckinney 9 times out of 10. So, but there are some missed tackles where he comes a little OC and misses the tackle. That can happen from time to time, but not very often. Is that 4.63 legit? That's the question you got to ask yourself. I personally don't think it is, but that's definitely a question that has to be asked. I mean, he ran it, right? I mean, we've seen guys do that at the combine before, run a lousy time, go to their pro day, clean it up. You know what your eyes see on tape. I know my eyes aren't deceiving me. I know what this guy is capable of. I wouldn't feel comfortable putting a guy with a 4.63 at center field as a single high free safety. I feel comfortable putting Xavier McKinney back there, not only because he is proactive and sees what's happening before it happens and is able to get over the top in enough time to make a play, but also because I know he has the speed to get there. So that's a real question, though, for a lot of teams, and I think that's what really hurt him. If you want me to be honest with you, the reason he's sitting here at 36 for the Giants to select is because of the 40 time. I think that's the biggest reason why. But at the end of the day, I could give 2 shits about that. Second round, 36th overall selection. Alabama defensive back Xavier McKinney for me is, of course, a 5. This is a steal. Honestly, it's the best pick of the draft that you made in terms of a value from a value perspective. It doesn't get much better than that if you're the New York Giants. Thought you hit it big there with Xavier McKinney. As we go to the next pick, 3rd round, 99th overall selection, offensive lineman out of UConn. Matt Peart is the pick. I'm just going to be really honest with you. I can't stand this pick. And these are the kinds of picks that drive me nuts with Dave Gettleman. I get it. You needed offensive tackle help. Did you need to select another one? You already took one. Did you need to select another one? One that is not ready to help you right away. In the 3rd round, the 10th tackle taken, if you want to count Hunt out of Louisiana Lafayette that the Dolphins took in the 2nd round as a tackle, then he's the 11th tackle taken in this draft. I don't count him as a tackle, so he's the 10th tackle taken. I had him as my number 13 tackle in this draft, and I was not very high on him. And really, to be honest with you, I said if you're taking him, it's with the thought process that you want him to sit out an entire year and you just want to work with him because the measurables, the skill set, the things, the raw abilities that this guy has and the things you can't teach are off the charts. And so you just want to get your hands on him. You just want to be able to get your hands on Matt Peart and say, all right, let's see what you have. All right. And I'm not sure why Dave Gettleman saw fit to pull the trigger this early on him. And to take it a step further, you needed a goddamn wide receiver. Why in the hell would you pass up on all of the receivers available at this point of the draft to take a guy that isn't ready to help you now? I really feel like Dave Gettleman took the direct opposite approach of what Denver did for their young quarterback in Drew Lock. They said, look, we're going to give you every single target and weapon you could ask for to make sure that you can get the job done. And if you can't, we'll find someone that can. The Giants took the opposite approach. We're going to make sure that our guy is starving for targets to throw the football to, but we're going to surround him with an offensive line that's going to give those guys a million years to get open. Good luck. Anyway, 6'7", 318 pounds, 37-inch arms, ran a 5.06 40. That's ridiculous, folks. I've never seen a set of arms that long before. And I'm pretty sure somebody's had 38-inch arms or 37.5-inch arms because his arms were pretty much 37 inches. I rounded them up. I've never seen arms that long before. So this guy is ridiculous. 12 games, 12 starts at right tackle in 2019 for his career. 48 games, 48 starts, 24 at right tackle, 24 at left tackle. So split it right down the middle, which tells you he's got the ability to be a swing tackle for you. And maybe that's why you drafted him. It's too damn early to be drafting a guy that won't start, that will be a swing tackle for you when you have other pressing needs on this roster. Ridiculous. As I mentioned, I had a 4th round grade on him, and he was my 13th tackle overall. And just to go back for a second, Xavier McKinney, my comp for him was Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger. When I see the Tyrann Mathieu on the field, I think of one of the highest football IQ guys in the league that just does everything so well, and a guy that can change the game. He comes over to Kansas City. That defense gets exponentially better. I'm not saying he was the only reason, but he was a huge reason as to why. There's a direct correlation to wherever he goes, the defense gets better, whether it's Arizona, Houston, or now Kansas City, helping them win a Super Bowl championship. I see a lot of those same qualities in Xavier McKinney that I do Tyrann Mathieu. That's a hell of a compliment because I think Tyrann Mathieu is one of the better safeties in all of the National Football League. Anyhow, strengths for Matt Peart. Ridiculous build, height, weight, length. I mean, not weight, but height and length. Are you kidding me? 6'7", 37-inch arms, running damn near a 5 flat 40. I mean, this guy has everything you're looking for, plus athlete. He's an ex-basketball player, so the athleticism is definitely apparent here, and you can see some of those skills translate over to the football field. Can change and redirect and move well laterally. So again, all of these things come from his time on the basketball court. And this guy was a basketball player growing up and didn't start playing football until high school. So there's still a lot of moldable traits with him, some things that he's not very good at right now. And he may not end up being really good at. I mean, it's not like he started playing football in college. He played football in high school. He played in college. And some of these things that he does or doesn't do, he may just not be capable of doing, or it's just not his temperament. Swing tackle ability. Like I mentioned, 24 starts at both tackle positions, which means he's got some versatility there. You need him on the right side at the second quarter of the game after one of your tackles goes down. He can step in there. You need him at left tackle in the fourth quarter when your tackle goes down. He can step in there. Like, he's able to do both because he's had experience playing both sides. And in playing experience, he got 48 starts. Look, it's the AAC. I get it. Not seeing a bunch of high-level competition there, but experience is experience. It's experience. You need it. Whether you're just working on your technique and getting better at doing the same things, creating that muscle memory so that you can perform at a high level, he's got experience nonetheless. Weaknesses. Doesn't use his length whatsoever. What good is 37-inch arms if you're not going to use them? If you're not going to put them on display? If you're not going to keep guys at bay? What good are 37-inch arms? I mean, literally, guys are getting into his chest on a routine play in, snap out basis. Like, dude, what are you doing? Keep these guys off of you. Speaking of which, his strength is non-existent. His hand placement is even worse. Not able to get guys off of his frame, and his hands are wide and all outside. Like, dude, seriously, guys are all up into your chest. They're running past you. They're driving you back. And I'm like, you got 37-inch arms, guy. Keep them at bay. Punch them in the chest. Keep them away from you. And he's just not able to do it. And his hands are the worst. Like, guys are getting into his chest, and his first move, his go-to move, is to just grab them by the shoulders. I'm like, are you asking for the official to flag you for holding? Like, what are you doing right now? Like, both of his hands, he's grabbing them around the back like a bear. I'm like, guy, are you going to belly-to-belly suplex this guy, or are you going to just tackle him? What are you doing right now? So, and that happens more often than you think, okay? Like, seriously, what are we doing right now? His punch is lame and late. Again, when you got 37-inch arms, get off first. The minute you feel threatened by that defensive lineman, by that edge rusher, bow, stiff punch to the chest, bro. Stay back, okay? Back up off me a taste. And he just doesn't do it. By the time he decides to dispatch his hands, that guy's pretty much in his grill at that point. You can't do, and if you're not strong enough, this is where bench presses come into play. If you're not strong enough to bench press that guy off of you, then you're not going to be able to get that guy off of you. And he can't. All right, what are you doing? Keep him at bay. At least give yourself a fighting shot. You got 37-inch arms, dude. Use them. He's a really nice guy. I mean, seriously, have you seen his picture that he took at the combine? He's cheesing from ear to ear. He's a nice guy, man. He's a basketball player playing football. He's a nice guy. You know what I put in my notes? Plays like he's blocking his grandma on every snap. Like, oh, I don't want to hurt you, grandma. Grandma, are you okay? Let's make sure we get you to the line of scrimmage. You want to go back to the quarterback? Be gentle. Be easy. Like, dude, block his ass. That's not your grandma. He's not your friend. All right? He's blocking everybody really nice and soft and gentle. And he's a nice guy, you know? He's the kind of guy you bring and you bring him to a picnic and it's a nice sunny day outside and he's got everything you need. You know, he's got the tablecloth and he's got the beverages. He's got chips. He's got sandwiches cut into nice, neat little squares with the crust peeled off. That's Matt Peart. Like, he's too nice. And I told you, nice doesn't matter in the trenches if you're still doing your job. Well, he's not doing his job very well. Look, he added 40 pounds between his freshman and sophomore year at UConn. He's gotten bigger. He can stand to get bigger. He's got a 6'7" frame. So I wouldn't be shocked if at the end of this thing, he's 330 pounds when the Giants get done with him. I don't know if they can change his temperament, though. I don't know if you can rewire a guy's brain. Usually, either you're really aggressive or you're not. You know, he's from Jamaica. Maybe he liked playing soccer, the other football growing up. I don't know. I can just tell you, he's a really nice guy on the football field. He's got a very laid-back temperament, and I don't know if you can change that. As a matter of fact, I'd go out on the record and say, you can't change that. And so I'm just telling you, this pick here, I can't stand it, all right? And there were so many other positions that you could have tackled. This is elite draft capital here in the third round at 99 overall. And you spent it on him? Seriously? All right, this is the guy you draft on day 3 for sure. Because the first 2 days, I want guys, impact guys, right off the bus. All right, soon as they step on the field for me, I know I'm getting a guy that's going to contribute day 1. That's not Matt Peart. It's just not. Sorry. So bottom line, what I'm telling you is third round, 99th pick overall, offensive tackle out of UConn for me. Matt Peart is a 2. This could have easily been a 1, but the measurables cannot be ignored. There's a lot of stuff to work with here. You just don't spend a third round pick here. When you got a roster, the way that the Giants looks, you got other positions that could desperately use an upgrade, like wide receiver. Anyway, we move on. I digress to the next selection in this Giants draft. 4th round, 110th pick overall. Cornerback out of UCLA. Darnay Holmes is the pick. 5'10", $195, 4'4", 940 guy. 1 tackle for loss, no sacks, no forced fumbles, 6 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, no block kicks, and no pick sixes in 10 games for his career. 3 tackles for loss, no sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 20 pass breakups, 8 interceptions, no block kicks, and 2 pick sixes in 35 games. I had a 4th or 5th round grade on Darnay Holmes, so I didn't have a problem where he was taken. Here's my problem with the selection of Darnay Holmes. There are better small corners in this draft if you wanted a smaller corner. Like, I don't know if that's what the Giants were actually looking for or if they just valued Darnay Holmes and his skill set, whether he can play outside or kick inside to the slot and a nickel. I don't know what their thought process was. But if you were looking for a small guy, because I look at Darnay Holmes and I think he's a small guy. There were better small guys that all went in the 4th round that were available at the time of this pick that I would have taken in a heartbeat over Darnay Holmes. All right, I would have taken Amik Robertson. Okay, he's 5'8", so if you're not looking for that short of a corner, I get it. He's a better football player, though. But if you want a bigger guy, I got guys for you that are better than Darnay Holmes at this selection. Okay, how about Josiah Scott that went to the Jaguars in the 4th round? Much better football player than Darnay Holmes. Trust me. All right, what about John Reed out of Penn State? Love the guy. And, okay, so, all right, so if Josiah Scott's not what you're looking for, he's 5'9". John Reed's 5'10". Much better football player to me than Darnay Holmes. All right, but whatever. You decided to go with Darnay Holmes. Let's break him down. Stays low, which translates to a very fluid back pedal. I remember Dion talking about him at the combine and saying, "Man, Darnay Holmes' his feet and his back pedal look really good," and they do, man. You could put on teaching tape on how to back pedal, how to stay low in your back pedal with Darnay Holmes. He does it really, really well. LLC properties. I do love the fact that he does look, locate, and contest. If you don't have that, there is a glass ceiling on how good you can be at the next level. He actually looks back for the football routinely, and you can tell he was taught well in that regard. Can't make plays on the ball. He got 8 interceptions, so it tells you he's looking back for the football. Can't make plays on the ball if you don't even know where it is to begin with. If you don't look back, then how can you locate the ball? If you can't locate the ball, how will you know where to put your hands to try to pick it off? Again, it's just simple, fundamental fundamental cornerback play 101, but a lot of guys don't do it. He does, so that's a good thing. Versatility, can offer a boundary or as a slot option. Saw him play both. Wasn't all that impressed with either version of Darnay Holmes, but okay, cool beans. He can do a little bit of everything in that regard. Ball skills and production to match. This is where he excels. He makes plays on the football. If it's in the air, he's got a my ball mentality. He attacks it like it's his, goes after it, and can make plays, as you can see. 8 interceptions, 2 of which go to the crib. So this is a guy that, once he gets the football in his hands, also can turn into a playmaker. Special teams value. This is a guy that can offer you some special teams value, whether you're talking about a gunner or you're talking about return value. This is a guy that had a 93-yard kickoff return for a touchdown in his career under his belt. So in a pinch, if you need a guy to help you on specials, Darnay Holmes may be able to do that as well for you. As you go to his weaknesses, out on the boundary at a true size disadvantage at times. When I watched him, he was in the Pac-12. A lot of big receivers out there, man. A lot of big guys that I liked out there, including Michael Pittman Jr., who went in the 2nd round to the Indianapolis Colts, or Isaiah Hodgins, who went in the 6th round, that should have been a Giant, for instance, that went to the Buffalo Bills in the 6th round. Really good, tall, big wide receivers. I watched him get his ass destroyed in multiple games by guys that were just simply bigger than him, and in certain cases that seemed faster than him, that weren't even faster than him. So some rough going for Darnay Holmes. That is for certain. And he just looks small on tape. Guys look like they're 6'2", guys look like they're 6'6". 6'4" guys look like they're 6'8" going against Darnay Holmes out there. Desmond Patman gave him work in the game against Washington State. But there was another receiver that was just destroying him, number 8. Can't remember his name. Just giving Darnay Holmes work. I mean, goddamn, I was like, when is this contract up? Because this guy is getting worked. All right. Doesn't stay in phase down the field and doesn't seem to have the makeup speed to get back into play, which is really disappointing because when you see the 4.49, you're thinking, all right, maybe this guy can run, keep up with these guys. Once he loses phase, all right, and he loses phase in the transitional period, which is odd because his back pedal is so smooth, but when he goes to flip his hips are tight. And because of that, you get a little bit of a stumble. It's not as clean and fluid. It's a little clunky. And he loses a step or two. And by that time, the receiver gets on top of him. And you're like, all right, Darnay, go catch him. Go catch him, Darnay. And Darnay can't catch up. And guys are smoking him. And he's got to dive at ankles to try to catch you. And it's a mess. It's a mess. He's not in phase enough for me down the field. Tight hips on transition leads to balance and phase issues. I just kind of spoke to that. And that's a problem that I don't think is really correctable. Your hips just don't get fluid overnight. Either you have oily hips or you don't. And he just doesn't. They're tight. Has trouble fighting off of blocks. Again, he's a smaller guy, and these bigger receivers are just engulfing him. It was funny. Tyler, I got to stop calling him Tyler. Desmond Patman of Washington State, who's a 6'4", 225-pound receiver. First play off the ball. I've always said, when I was a receiver, the first thing I would do to a cornerback is I would come off the ball, and I would just hit him with everything I've got in the first snap. Just to kind of play with his head, like, this guy wants to be physical with me. I'm going to show him. And maybe I'll get into his head and get him out of his game because he's trying to do something that maybe he's not. And the first play of the game, he just comes up to Darnay Holmes and two-hand chucks him, and he goes down like he just got hit by a Mike Tyson uppercut. It's hysterical. I'm like, dude, seriously? And the rest of the game, and even against USC and the other games that I watched, he just can't get off of blocks. Guys are blocking him 10, 15, 20 yards down the field, and I'm like, dude, get off the block, do something. And he can't. I mean, he just can't. Missing plant and drive capabilities. A lot of underneath throws completed on Darnay Holmes. Too much for my liking. And again, there were other guys in this draft that wouldn't give up these underneath throws, that would be able to stay in phase with these receivers down the field. Like, what are you doing right now? But I said all of that to say this. He's a solid player. He does offer you some value. You didn't take him out of place. You know, I would have, 4th, 5th round was fine. I just thought there were other options available that were better. My comp for him is Captain Munnerlyn, a solid player throughout his career in the NFL, but never a guy that struck fear in your heart. I see a lot of the same qualities in Darnay Holmes. He's going to get beat if you put him out on the field. I'm just telling you that right now. He's going to get beat deep. But at the end of the day, you chose him. He's a solid football player. This could have easily been a 2, but it doesn't need to be here in the 4th round. He's a solid football player, and he can contribute. And so because of that, he's a 3 for the Giants in the 4th round of this draft. As we move on to the next selection for the Giants, 5th round, 150th pick overall. Offensive lineman out of Oregon, Shane Lemieux is the selection. 6'4", 310 pounds, 32-inch arms. 14 games, 14 starts at left guard in 2019 for his career. A sparkling 52 out of 52 at the left guard position. Did not miss a single game. Once he was inserted at left guard, he stayed at left guard for 4 straight years. Did not miss a single start nor a snap. I had a 4th round grade on him. You got him in the 5th round. So to me, that is tremendous value. Strengths: looks and plays the part of a physical, no-nonsense guard. I talked about how nice of a guy Matt Peart was. Shane Lemieux, not nice, okay? He's a nasty boy. He's coming in there to put your dick in the dirt and put an elbow drop on you if he can. First play against Auburn, and we know how big and physical those are mean guys over there across the line of scrimmage at Auburn. A couple of their guys got drafted very early in the 2020 NFL draft. He didn't give 2 shits about who was across from him. First play of the game, first 3rd down, I believe, of the game it was. I think it was early in the game, either first or either 2nd or 3rd down. First possession. They throw a bubble out to the perimeter, and the guy for Auburn, the defensive lineman, tries to get out there, and Shane Lemieux deploys his go-go gadget arms, snatches the guy up, and dumps him on his skull and keeps running. I'm like, what the hell was that? What just happened? I actually have to rewind it and watch it again. Like, did he just grab that guy, dump him on his skull, and keep running like he didn't just drop him on his head? Yeah, he did that. Yeah, that was pretty damn awesome. Forceful initial contact jolts defenders. Man, when he comes off the ball, he comes off with pretty damn bad intentions. Guys feel him when he lays hands on them, man. It's fun to watch. I'm not going to lie to you. Has tremendous strength and torque in his hips. That play that I talked about against Auburn is a prime example of that. All he did was really grab him, turn his hips, just turn his ass, and slam that guy down, and did it with relative ease, may I add. Hit rate on second-level targets, very high. He's a guy that he locks in on second-level defenders and usually makes contact. Doesn't necessarily attach himself to them and sustain, but he does make contact. And sometimes that's all you really need to do at the second level. If your guy's going at full speed and you got one of the best in the business at Saquon Barkley at acceleration, if you just get a piece of a guy, Saquon's gone. He's not going to catch Saquon Barkley. So he's got a really high hit rate as a on second level targets. Gets the job done on some reaches and recovers really solidly. Doesn't win all reach block battles. Some guys are able to beat him to the spot, but he does a hell of a job at fighting to get there. That's for damn sure. And even when he does get beat from time to time, he recovers really well for a guy that I don't think is the greatest athlete in the world. So, and has shorter arms to boot. So I'm actually was somewhat surprised at how well he recovered when he did get beat. The three abilities, he's got them in spades: availability, dependability, and durability. As I mentioned, 52 consecutive starts at Oregon. While all the pieces around him were shifting around, this guy was the mainstay. This was the guy that did not move. They could count on him week in, week out to be there and do his job and do it to the best of his abilities. And that it also bleeds over to the last strength. That's experience. And, you can't substitute for experience. I don't care what conference or what division or what level of football you're playing at. You need to have experience. It's the way you get better. And he's got it in spades. As you get to his weaknesses, his base can be too wide in pass sets, causing imbalance from time to time. That's the only time when I see him off balance, is when he doesn't have a proper base. Even when he's somewhat over aggressive with his punch, which is another weakness that we'll talk about. He still is able to do enough to stay in a play and rebound, as I talked about him recovering, when he has a solid enough base. When his base is off balance, that's when he gets dump trucked. And I saw him get lifted off his feet and on skates, and he couldn't recover a couple of times. But that's because his base was a little bit too wide. Inconsistent sustain off the initial pop. I talked about how he jolts defenders with that initial contact, but he doesn't sustain afterwards, which, in certain cases he does, but a lot more times, I'd say about 65% of the time, he doesn't sustain, And when he does that 35% of the time, it's so beautiful, because now guys are getting to the second level and that run is popping out for, 26 yards, and he's got the key kick out block. But then there are other times when he doesn't, and that guy ends up getting involved in the play. I just like to see him sustain a little bit better, because that initial pop is so impactful that I feel like he should build off of that and just really sustain that block. Can be over aggressive with his punch at times, and I talked about that briefly a few seconds ago. But just to reiterate, sometimes he can be over aggressive with his hands, and unlike Matt Peart, who just doesn't want to use his hands at all, he can be a little bit over aggressive trying to get them out too soon. Which, if you've ever boxed and you throw a punch and you miss, you extract more energy, you use more energy, and you throw yourself off balance when you throw a heavy punch and you miss. That's what happens as an offensive lineman. You go and you try to strike a guy and you don't have the proper base and you miss, you're in trouble. No different in the boxing ring, no different on the football field. Runs out of gas at the second level sometimes. Like, I'm watching this guy, and he's like 12 yards up the field, or at one point he was like 7 yards. He wasn't even that far up the field. And he kind of just turned around and looked like, all right, I ran far enough. There's nobody out here. And there were guys to block. He's like, all right, I had enough. Where's the running back already? And I'm like, dude, he's coming. Go get somebody. And he's like, F it. I'll do it next time. Like, what are you doing, guy? Go block somebody, all right? You can rest in the huddle, all right? Don't do that. And so I'm doing it multiple times where he's just like, all right, I ran far enough. If I haven't contacted somebody by now, I'm of no use to you, all right? I get it. No, I don't. Anyway, he never missed a game at Oregon. I love this selection. This is one of the last ones that I actually love in this draft for the Giants. 5th round, 150th selection overall. Offensive guard out of Oregon. Shane Lemieux, for me, is a 4, man. I think this is a plug-and-play guard, to be honest with you. And I know you got guys that you really like at the guard position, but I can tell you this much. If Will Hernandez isn't playing to the level you need him to, or, one of the other guys on that interior aren't giving you the kind of play that you desire, Shane Lemieux is ready and willing to go in and do some work, man. I like him a lot. And you got some good depth on the offensive line at guard now with the addition of Shane Lemieux. I like him. 6th round, 183rd selection in this draft for the Giants. Linebacker out of Penn State. I see what I'm doing wrong. Linebacker out of Penn State. Cameron Brown is the selection. This is when I start getting off the I start kind of veering off in a different direction from this draft and what was done here by the Giants. Not really a huge fan of some of these picks at the back end of the draft, but this is what happens when you start getting into the 6th and the 7th round. And honestly, I would prefer a team package up all of these damn 7th round picks. Like, 3, 4, 7 round. That's too many damn 7th round picks. These guys aren't going to make your football team. They're not going to be impact players more likely than not. Package up some of these bastards. And I'm not talking about the players or bastards. I'm talking about these picks in particular. Package them up and go get a player that could actually help and contribute in the 6th round. And don't just settle for a bunch of 7th round guys. And I thought you did that, but we're not talking about a 7th round guy here. We're talking about a 6th rounder in Cameron Brown out of Penn State. 6'5", 233 pounds, 34-inch arms, ran a 4.72 at the combine. 5.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 4 pass breakups in 13 games. For his career, 15 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 11 pass breakups, 1 blocked kick in 51 games. Had a 5th round grade on him, so you got him a round later, which means you got good value for Cameron Brown. Kind of like what he brings to the table from a skill set standpoint. He's going to have to get stronger and bigger, but at 6'5" with 34-inch arms and a solid athlete, there's something you can do with guys like Cameron Brown in today's NFL. Long, rangy, active defender is the first strength. Love the fact that, again, he's a unique defender in the sense that you don't see a lot of linebackers at 6'5". That they're not growing on trees at that particular position. And what a lot of people don't talk about with linebackers is how tough it is to throw over a 6'5" frame. If this guy's over the middle of the field and you're trying to throw a touch pass to a tight end who's running a seam ball, and you got a 6'5" linebacker who's jumping up and making it difficult on you, you know how hard it is to squeeze it over him versus a 6-foot linebacker jumping up? I mean, it's so much more difficult to throw a touch pass over a 6'5" linebacker who's leaping with 34-inch arms. I'm just saying. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. So that matters, and you don't see a lot of these guys in the league. Solid athleticism. He can move around. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but he's got really solid athleticism, and when he opens up and runs, he can move. Gets good depth on his zone drops. I think he does a really good job in his drop, getting depth and kind of giving the quarterback a tough decision to make on whether to throw this football or not. Comes downhill with bad intentions. Man, he's a guy that just reckless abandon when he comes downhill. I love it. He throws his body around, willing to get in the fray. This is a guy that I think should be blitzed a little bit more. Speaking of which, aggressive blitzer with impeccable timing and a burst to close. He's one of these guys that times up his blitzes with the snap. It's like he watched film or something, and I may be giving him too much credit, but man, is he timing up these blitzes, and maybe he's watching the play clock, and he sees it's at 1. They got to snap the ball, so either I'm going to be right or they're going to have a delay of game penalty. Either way, he's timing these things up impeccably, and he's getting in the backfield, and before guys can even react, Cameron Brown's on your ass. Now, he doesn't always make the goddamn tackle, which is a problem. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but he's back there causing a ruckus. He's causing a stir back there in the backfield. Plays with tremendous motor and energy. I love guys like that, and when you've got a little bit of athleticism to match, usually the guys that play with tremendous motor and energy, you love it when it's a guy that's one of your best players, that's one of your better athletes. It just makes it that much better when that guy also is a tremendous player and athlete. A lot of times, though, the guys with these motors and plays with this kind of energy are the guys that have to try hard. They're try hard guys. They got to play with everything they got. They're the Rudies on your football team, because if they don't have enough physical makeup and physical gifts to overcome not playing with their hair on fire on every snap? Well, he's one of those guys, got a little bit of everything, got some size, got a little bit of athleticism, and plays the game with an infectious energy. Weaknesses: can stand to add strength to his frame. He's not a really big guy at 6'5", 233. He could add to his frame, and get a little bit stronger, because when he gets in the run game, he's usually not that big of a factor because he can't get off of blocks. So he needs to get a little bit stronger. Gobbles up eye candy is the next weakness. Oh my God. He is a eye candy gobbler. Man, he falls for all the play action fakes. He falls for all the bootlegs, all the tricks, all the fake screen one way, throw the screen back the other way. You want to get Cameron Brown? Fake a screen one way and throw it back the other way. Oh, he's hauling ass to the wrong side of the field. I'm like, dude, diagnose what's happening, man. See what's going on. The running back isn't going that way. Why are you going that way? What are you doing right now, man? Seriously. I mean, he was all over the place, man. They would run play action fake, and he's taking 5 false steps forward, and then realize, oh, it's a pass. Yeah, guy, you should have realized that 3 steps ago. All right. They're running a screen, and he's all over the place, wrong side of the field. I'm like, huh? How did you get that out of that? Okay, whatever. Is extremely OC, which leads to missed tackles. OC, out of control. All right, he's flying all over the place. I need him to play with controlled aggression. He's just flying all over the map, man. His GPS, like I said, can get broken sometimes. It's leading him all over the place to wrong places. But when he gets there, he arrives in a hurry, so much so that sometimes he's not in a position to break down and actually make a damn tackle. He's slipping and sliding all over the place. He's missing. And so he's got to be a little bit more controlled when going in for a tackle. Needs to develop a better feel for his responsibility in zone and how to make it tougher on quarterbacks and wide receivers. Here's a guy that I told you gets great depth on his drops, but doesn't actually fully understand what the offense is trying to do to him. He doesn't understand high-low concepts. He's not understanding that if this guy's running into my zone, how about I pattern match him to restrict that window that the quarterback has to throw the football to him. Not let this guy just kind of sit in a zone, in a hole, and be wide open. How about I restrict that area and make that quarterback turn this receiver down or turn this running back down? I don't think he understands that on 3rd and 13, they want you to bite the eye candy of this running back showing up over the ball, or this receiver all of a sudden appearing 6 yards over the ball because they've got a 13-yard dig route behind you that they're trying to throw the football to. And if you react to that, they're going to throw it for the first down. I don't think he understands those things right now. And so I think he'll get better with more experience, more time. But right now, I think he's a guy that needs some work. He's also got NFL bloodlines. His cousin, Andre Davis, played in the league for the Cleveland Browns at the receiver position. So Andre Davis, played from Virginia Tech, played in the league. So does have that coursing through his veins. And my comp for him is Zach Cunningham, another long, rangy linebacker that came into this league undersized. Zach Cunningham was right around 6'3", 6'4", about 200, right around 232 or so. I remember that when he came out of Mizzou, and we were saying, man, this guy, was it Mizzou or Vandy? I think Zach Cunningham might have actually been Vandy, if I'm not mistaken. But I remember saying, man, this guy's long as hell, but you got to put on some weight, man. He's just all arms and legs at this point. And you kind of could say the same thing about Cameron Brown. So in any event, in the 6th round, 183rd pick overall, linebacker out of Penn State, Cameron Brown for me is a 3. Solid football player. Think he can help this football team in some capacity, and look forward to seeing what he's able to do in the near future as we move on to the next pick in the draft, 7th round. And this is where I kind of lose my grip on this Giants draft here in the 7th round. 218th pick overall, edge rusher out of Minnesota, Carter Kaufman is the pick. 6'3", 236 pounds, 31-inch arms, 4'5'7", 40. So really good athlete, but I think he might have lost some weight in the coming into the combine to run faster. I can't imagine he played at 236. He doesn't look like he's 236 on tape. He doesn't look that big either, but 236 is too damn small. Either way, I think he got that weight to run fast, and he achieved his goal at the combine, but 9.5 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 4 pass breakups in 13 games in 2019. For his career, 40 tackles for loss, 22.5 sacks, 7 forced fumbles, 4 pass breakups in 49 games. So he did some work throughout his career in Minnesota. Very decorated career for Carter Kaufman. I had a 7th round grade on him, so this is where he should have gone. I'll give you my comp for him a little bit later on. Good athlete and play speed. He plays to that time speed. You see a guy that's really athletically gifted and is able to use those athletic exploits on the field to help him make plays. High energy, high motor defender. That's been a theme for the most part with this draft, is guys that have that kind of energy, that switch that just stays on and plays the game hard on every single snap. Carter Kaufman is one of those guys. Plays with an understanding of leverage and how to maximize it. He plays low. And by playing low, you're able to control the rep a lot of times by winning the leverage battle and staying lower than that offensive lineman and being able to either drive him back or disengage when that ball carrier comes your way. You see him make some plays in the run game. It was a 4th down that I'm watching him against Ohio State, able to make the stop on 4th down and help his team. So when you understand leverage and how to maximize it, you can really help yourself, and he seems to get that. Can drop into coverage. He didn't look like fish out of water, dropping into coverage. I wouldn't necessarily ask him to do that on a consistent basis, but he didn't look terrible dropping at a 45-degree angle into a hook zone. Solid initial rush, but his secondary rush is even better. Like his rush off the edge doesn't scare me. Like, I'm like, oh my God, this guy's got an electric first step, or man, his burst around the edge, man, he can bend it, he can dip it and rip it. Nah, he's not doing any of that stuff. But it's that secondary rush. It's that up the field, okay, I lost initially, spin back to the inside, fall into the quarterback. That's where he excels to me. It's his ability to secondary rush. I think his secondary rush is better than his initial rush, which usually isn't a good thing, but you rather have a good secondary rush than no rush at all. So you go to his weaknesses. Pass rush is flavorless and stale. Didn't see much variety, not a lot of moves you get excited about. You're seeing the same speed and then speed to power around the edge. Not a lot of hands, not a lot of spin moves initially. The spin usually comes after the speed doesn't work or the power doesn't work. I felt like I was chewing some Bazooka Joe and or some double bubble. After the first 10 seconds, I'm like, all right, I had enough of this. Doesn't have any discernible traits. Nothing that Carter Kaufman does on the football field stands out. I look at him and I say, you're not big, you're not fast, you're not overly strong. So what is it you do again? Like, why should I be excited about you as a 7th round pick? Other than the production, which is cool, but this is the NFL, not the Big Ten. Lacks bend, burst, and strength to threaten the edge consistently. So like I said, as an edge rusher, not really that worried about Carter Kaufman if he lines up across from me. Not really. Struggles to shed blockers in the run game. And like I said, if you're going to be 236 pounds, I think he was more around like 242 at his playing weight. But whatever the case may be, still too damn small to be playing at the NFL level as an edge rusher. When you're going to be that small, you're going to get engulfed by tackles. And he did at times. And so my comp for him is Kyle Emanuel, the North Dakota State Bison that was drafted by the Chargers 3-4 years ago now. See a lot of similarities. Kyle Emanuel was much bigger and much more dynamic off the edge, but I see a lot of the same characteristics in Carter Kaufman's game with Kyle Emanuel. And if you're the Giants, you hope he morphs into Kyle Emanuel. At least that means he'll hang around for a little while. We'll see. But in the 7th round, 218th pick overall, Kyle Emanuel, Carter Kaufman, for me, is a 2. I can't get excited about a lot of these 7th round picks, which is why I just want you to move some of them. These guys, more likely than not going to make your football team. And maybe you find a diamond in the rough, and I think there is one in particular in this draft that could morph into something for you, but Miss me with the 4 7th round selections, please. Seriously. Please, don't do that. 7th round, 238th overall pick. Linebacker out of South Carolina. T.J. Brunson is the selection. 6'1", 230-pound linebacker out of South Carolina. 6 tackles for loss, no sacks, no forced fumbles, 5 pass breakups, 1 interception in 12 games in 2019. For his career, 21 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 6 pass breakups, 1 interception in 49 games. And, those stats for a 3-year starter don't really move the needle for me. I look at those stats, say, oh, man, that's cute. You started probably for 1 season, and then you find out he started for 3 years, and then you look at those stats again, and you go, huh? Anyway, plays with a physical demeanor. He's physical. If you're looking for a thumper, T.J. Brunson's your man. He's coming downhill. It's a beautiful play. Speaking of which, let's get into the next strength. Patience to diagnose for proper gap attack will fit into his gaps well. So there's a play against Clemson. Down by the goal line, 4th and goal. Clemson trying to punch it in. They've had 4 chances from about the 2-yard line. They can't get it in, so they decide to go for it on 4th down. And look, it's South Carolina. They know they're going to whoop their ass. So if we don't get it on 4th down, who cares? We're still going to score 40-something points and blow these guys out, which they ultimately did. And so they go for it on 4th down, and Trevor Lawrence runs a quarterback keep, and he gets to the outside, and who's waiting for him? T.J. Brunson, who lights him up, stands him up at the goal line. His teammates come, they drive him back. 4th down stop, beautiful play. And Brunson kind of just sorted his way through the wash, kind of scraped his way down the line, and bow! Found Trevor Lawrence right at the goal line, stood his ass up and drove him back. So he's physical, and he's patient, and he finds the proper fits into gaps. Solid tackle finish rate on tackle attempts. He's one of those guys that I feel really comfortable that if he gets there, he's going to get you down. Whether he's clicking your ankle, getting a piece of your shoestring, or he's getting a solid wrap and roll tackle going, he's going to get you down. 3-year starter experience for T.J. Brunson at South Carolina in the SEC. Weaknesses: lacks difference-making speed and athleticism. Man, does he struggle to get to the perimeter, and even in his zone drops, and I watched him in man-to-man, which was a very big mistake. I watched him in man-to-man. The tight end gave him a fake to the post and out to the corner, and T.J. Brunson, man, is like the man had ice at the bottom of his shoes. He couldn't stop to redirect, change directions to get out to the corner route. Luckily enough for him, there was a safety over the top, or that's an easy 6. Man, was that rough. You ever seen a cartoon character slip on a banana peel and they go flying 3-4 yards the other way? That's what T.J. Brunson looked off a simple head and shoulder shake to the post and out to the corner. Man, was that rough to watch. Easily fooled by deception. I just told you he was fooled by the fake post, but I'm not even talking about that when I talk about deception. I watched a couple of plays in particular against Clemson where I'm like, wow. So they run a reverse, and the first handoff is going this way, and then the second one comes this way, and boy, Brunson, he's running 3 yards chasing the guy that doesn't have the ball anymore, and the guy gave the ball up 10 seconds ago, and T.J. Brunson's still chasing him. I'm like, please tell me that your coach told you that no matter what, you chase that guy. Even if he's carrying out a fake, that's your guy, just in case they are doing something creative like a throwback pass or something. You stay with that guy. Please tell me that's what they told you, because if not, that's embarrassing. And then you see, bootlegs and fakes, and this guy is just biting on the eye candy, man. Yikes, it's rough. Not much value as a 3rd down linebacker. You can't have him on the field in passing situations. He's just not going to help you in that regard. If you're going to have T.J. Brunson on the field, you better know that it's a run, or you're probably at a distinct disadvantage. Either way, Had sports hernia surgery before the 2019 season, still was able to play in all 12 games. So good for him. Bottom line is it's another 7th round pick that I'm not all too thrilled about. Again, you could have packaged up a couple of these, got you a wide receiver that you still didn't draft for whatever reason. Here in the 7th round, TJ Brunson for me is another 2. Easily could have been a 1, but I do see value in having a guy like that on the football team. We get to the 7th round yet again. 7th round, 247th pick overall. Defensive back out of Minnesota. Chris Williamson is the pick. 6 feet, 205 pounds. 4 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, 0 forced fumbles, 3 pass breakups, 1 interception, 1 pick 6 in 13 games. For his career, 7.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 7 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, and that pick 6 in 24 games. So this is a guy that is an ex-wide receiver that transferred from Florida, had to sit out all of 2017. So he played at Florida the first 2 years of his career in college. Didn't like it there, ended up transferring to Minnesota, had to sit out 2017 for, transfer rules. And so he only has 2 real seasons of collegiate ball under his belt and only 1 year of starting, which was 2019. So not a lot of tape. These are the kind of guys you take in the 7th round, though. If you're going to take guys with limited experience that you feel like have upside and some potential, maybe not enough tape, maybe some off the field issues and red flags, maybe some medical red flags, but they got talent and you know it. Then you take those guys, and he kind of fits into that not enough tape, not enough experience, but you feel like he's got some upside because he's a versatile defender. They played him as a big nickel at Minnesota, so effectively as a safety in a linebacker role, but he was playing over the slot a lot of times. Not a guy you want playing man-to-man. He is not adept at playing man-to-man, but because of his ex-wide receiver background and some zone drops, he does understand what receivers are trying to do, so he is able to kind of pattern match and get in the way a bit. So from that regard and in that respect, he does help. I thought that he was a really solid blitzer when he decided to line up and mug the B gap or the C gap and come off a blitz. I thought he did some good things there. I thought he was an energetic defender, a guy that was always around the ball but never seemed to get there on time, and he missed a bunch of tackles, too many for my liking. Not a big help as a man-to-man defender, but as a big nickel, he's a guy not afraid of contact, will come up and hit and fill the void at some of these lanes. And so I thought he was solid, but again, not a needle mover in the 7th round for me. And so in the 7th round, 247th pick overall, defensive back out of Minnesota, Chris Williamson for me is a 2 as we get to the final pick in this draft for the New York Football Giants in the 7th round. Mr. Irrelevant, 255th pick overall, linebacker out of Georgia. Tay Crowder is the selection. 6'3", 235 pounds, 4 tackles for loss, no sacks, no forced fumbles, 4 pass breakups, no interceptions, no block kicks, no pick sixes in 14 games. For his career, 10 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 5 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, no block kicks, no pick sixes in 43 contests. So this is a guy that moved from running back to linebacker during the 2016 season. The coaching staff went to him and said, "Look, bruh, we love you, man. We really do." And credit to Tay Crowder for understanding what his standing on the roster was, and then not just saying, "You know what, I'm a running back," and transferring. He took heed to the advice of the coaching staff. They said, "Look, bruh, we're loaded at running back." And think about Georgia and the running back position at the time of this conversation that they had with Tay Crowder in 2016. You're talking Sony Michel, you're talking Nick Chubb, you're talking Holyfield, Elijah Holyfield, and you're talking Swift. And I don't know if Swift was there or yet. He probably was. And they had the Harrion guy. Like, seriously, dude, you're not getting on the field. All right? So, essentially, they said, "Look, man, you got a better shot at linebacker than running back." And so, during the season, in season, he makes the switch to linebacker. and it really benefited him. And you see some explosion, man. This guy pops. And this is the one guy of all these 7th rounders. This is the one guy that pops where I'm like, all right, this is what I'm talking about in the 7th round. If you're going to spend a 7th round pick, this is the kind of guy. Not a ton of experience, still extremely raw at the position, but you see that running back athleticism pop on tape at the linebacker position. Watching him against Notre Dame, he's beating guys to the spot. They run a toss, he's in the backfield. They throw a screen, he blows the shit up. That's the kind of athleticism that intrigues me in the 7th round. A guy that you look at and say, he's probably a 4 or 5 guy. He can run. He's a guy that can do a lot of things. You can drop him into coverage. You know, you teach him up, you school him, you give him the tools he needs, and then you send him on his way, and he may be able to produce for you down the road. I like Tay Crowder. I think there's something here. There's a closing burst. There's a level of athleticism and speed and movement ability on the field. There's a fluidity that he plays with. Not yet. He's not yet where you need him to be in the diagnosis process and the leverage of tackling and all of that stuff that you would get in the lower levels and be more comfortable doing at the collegiate game. He's not there yet. He's in the infant stages. Look, he's just an underclassman in the school of linebacker. All right. As he continues to get his studies and continues to pass classes, eventually he's going to graduate. And when he does, you may benefit from a 7th round pick here as Mr. Irrelevant in Tay Crowder. I like him better than any of your other 7th round picks. And I could argue that his skill set translates to the NFL maybe even better than your 6th round pick out of Penn State. So Tay Crowder for me is a guy that I really like. And I think there's some value here in the 7th round, 255th pick overall, linebacker out of Georgia. Tay Crowder for me is a 3, man. I think there is some upside, there's some value, and this is a guy that I would be anxious to work with if I were a part of the Giants coaching staff. So you look at this draft in its totality, and like I said, at the top of this draft, you did some really good things, you know, some big time contributors coming down the pipeline in Thomas and McKinney. And I think that Lemieux at some point is really going to help you. But then you look at some of these other picks like Parrott and, you know, all these damn 7th rounders and the 6th rounder. And, you know, I just look at some of these selections and I'm thinking, no receiver in the entire draft? Really? You think that your receiver group and you took like 87 undrafted guys. That's garbage. That's bullshit is what it is, to be honest with you. You know, you get all of these guys from Ohio State that didn't get drafted, Victor Benjamins, and I never trust anybody with 2 first names, and you get the tall, skinny, light-skinned kid, number 11, I can't remember his damn name. All these guys that didn't get drafted for a reason. And you load up on all of these undrafted receivers, and you say, hey, we got you some stuff, man. I hope you're excited about the groceries. Look, all of these groceries that you just brought your quarterback, all of them are going to expire here in the next day or 2. He's got to make the meal with these groceries right now or they're going to expire. You got to get your man some fresh groceries to cook with. What are you doing to Daniel Jones right now? You know, Darius Slayton was a solid pick. He's no number 1. Golden Tate's best football, long gone. Are you really relying on Corey Coleman to come off of an ACL tear to help you? What the hell are you doing at wide receiver anyway? I like Sterling Shepard just as much as the next man. There is not enough stuff at receiver on this team for you to just pass on the entire position at one of the deepest positions in this entire draft. Inconceivable that you would think that was smart. Anyway, with that being said, you got good football players, and your score isn't indicative of how I actually feel about this draft. It's a 3.10, which amounts to a B-. If you're looking for the grading rubric, down in the description will give you a look at how I got to that 3.10. Essentially, I tallied up all the scores for the Giants. They had 10 selections, 31 points overall for their draft. Nets you a 3.10, which is a B- on the grading scale. Again, all of that is down in the description if you are curious. Really, you should have probably gotten a C for this draft because of some of the decisions made, where you took some of these players, and more importantly, because of all of these damn 7th round picks that you had, instead of packaging them up and getting guys that can help, you decided to just go with more darts that you could throw at the dartboard. Good for you. You know, I get it. You need linebackers. I get it. Hands up. You need linebackers. How about a receiver? Just one. In a really deep class, just one. All right. Whatever. You got like 6 undrafted guys, 6 priority free agents. Knock yourself out with that. Have fun. Hope one of them or 2 of them work out for you. But it was the guys that I liked in this draft that really carried the day. The Andrew Thomas, the Xavier Mckinney, which was an absolute steal, the Shane Lemieux that really helped bolster this draft grade anyway. I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. Remember, if it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage it could be. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the Louie T Network if you haven't already done so. What are you waiting on? More great coverage coming down the pipeline. Make sure you subscribe. Turn on those notifications so you don't miss a thing. Speaking of notifications, if you want to stay abreast of what's going on the Louie T Network, follow me on Twitter at Louie T Network or on IG, Louie T Network _ is where you can find me. Until next time, you guys stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves. We'll reconvene sooner rather than later. More draft wrap-up coming your way, so you stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Until then, you guys take care. Have a good one.